time to make a quick stop for some good old-fashioned padkos. That's an Afrikaans phrase that South Africans love using to describe food that you've packed for a long road trip. 5,000 kilometers later, this is all the old lady has to show for herself, some beautiful winged butterflies. It is here in Tanzania where you'll find Africa's highest peak, Mount Kilimanjaro, and Africa's largest lake, Lake Victoria. It's also home to the well-known Serengeti National Park and Africa's Eden, the Ngorongoro crater. Luckily for Mike, there's not a traffic cop in sight. And Jeanette still seems to be having a jolly old time.
Changes of perceptions of Africa along the way, anything? You're just loving it.
No, we were really enjoying it because we love game reserves and going and seeing all this game. The Great North Road actually goes through this huge game reserve, just like the Kruger Park. And it really was very worthwhile. We saw 2 lines of male and female, and the lead vehicle dashed past them, never saw them. But luckily we had the paramedic and he saw them straight away, and we stopped and we radioed to the lead vehicle to come back. And every time we put our foot on the accelerator, it was lovely. So there I was going, doo 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 doo. It was great.
Did you ever feel like you were following in the great adventurer's footsteps, like the
Yes, like when we started off at Kimberley and having stayed in Cecil John Rhodes's room at the Kimberley Club, that was the start. And also at the Lord Milliner at Mikey'sfontein, because you must remember that Mikey'sfontein had how many 10,000 people living there at the turn of the century, which were mainly the British soldiers. That's where they were encamped. And now there are only 300 inhabitants. Now, you see, that's how it all started, because, yes, we are following in the footsteps of the days of the Boer War, and then going and staying in Cecil John Rhodes's room, and then going to these magic places like Butinondo, and going to the Royal Livingston. You know, those, and Cecil John Rhodes is just right through Africa, really.
I asked Mike what people thought when he came up with the idea to do the trip.
In the very beginning, a lot of people said, that's a bad idea. A Rolls Royce is meant for luxury driving around the tar roads of England. I wanted to prove something, and I wanted to prove that it's not just a luxury car, and as acknowledged by many, at that time anyway, of this model, the best car in the world. I wanted to prove not only it's the best car in the world, but it's a robust, resilient car that can take the rough roads of Africa.
The Rolls, like its Silverhead owners, has really lived up to its reputation so far. As up to now, over 6,000 kilometres into the trip, the only thing that has gone wrong is losing a hubcap. Pretty good going for an old girl.
And then when we got through there, we stayed in a fantastic place called Butinondo. It was a formidable place. It was a safari camp right in the middle of granite hills, and the huts were built on the granite. Wow, just look at this. This is something else. Oh my goodness. Look at that view. Oh, it's beautiful.
Very beautiful.
The bath was built in the granite. If I can sit down, but I'll have a try. This is the bath. Oh, it's lovely. And the toilet was open, and you just looked the whole 180 degrees around you while you were sitting on the toilet. Gorgeous, what a view to have a poo. Look at the toilet roll. A little tap. This is the best water we're going to get. Lovely drinking water. It was just so beautiful. It was lovely. Ah, nice. Nice and soft. In the visitor's book, after having spent a night there, I said, Muti is medicine and Nondo must be the best in the world.
Where to now from Tanzania?
Well, from Tanzania, we're on our way to Kenya or whatever you like to say. People call it anything nowadays.
In fact, the correct pronunciation is Kenya, according to local tradition, and its capital, Nairobi, is popularly known as the Green City in the Sun. Along the way, the sights, sounds and smells of a new exciting African country surround the Silver Spirit team. And Mike and Jeanette discover that Kenya has a real vibe about it. The Kenyans are incredibly friendly to our Silver Spirit adventurers and are completely bowled over by the Rolls-Royce too.
This one's strong. Very strong. Like Land Rover body.
Yeah, it's a Land Rover. We didn't see the rim covers in the tires.
Lost them. Photos. That one and that one.
This is German.
Gone. Other sides.
As usual, the old lady steals the show. After all, she has reached superstar status on this trip, at least in the eyes of her loving owners. And all this travelling is thirsty work, so it's time to top up the tank and hand over the Kenyan shillings. Then things almost get a little tense when Roger politely refuses to give a local some money.
I'm going to remember you. No, I'm not giving you any money, okay?
Well, maybe not so politely.
Cheers.
In Kenya, we spend a little while doing our first service to the Hilux and just preparing for the rest of the way up Africa.
We had to do the service for the Hilux because it was a new car and it had done now 10,000 kilometers. So we went to the Toyota agents and all they did was clean the filters. And that's about all really, and changed the oil and greased it. We also took the Rolls-Royce to
Checkered flag.
the checkered flag. Some, can I say, veteran car enthusiasts who gave it a good going over and really did a good service on that for us at the same time. And they'd never charged us a thing.
They wouldn't charge us. They said it was an honour to work on the rolls.
They're only about 20% worn, 10% worn. Pretty good.
Car's in very good condition, surprisingly for what it went through. We've got a few minor problems. The exhaust mountings are broken. Doing an all service with a bent wheel, which we're straightening. The skid plate is bent, we're repairing that. Everything else is in good nick. Suspension, shocks, tyres, heading in the right,
The team is north of Nairobi now at the Baden-Powell Cemetery, where they decide to pay respects to the world-famous founder of the Scouts. He's buried next to his wife, whose body was flown from England to lie beside him, and what a glorious place to spend eternity. Mike was an avid scout himself at 12, whilst Jeanette was a Girl Guides Commissioner over 40 years ago. Is that Jeanette taking the oath again? If there's one thing the Van Ginkels can't resist, it's anything to do with aeroplanes and flying. So they make a stop just north of Nairobi at a private aerodrome. I'm sure Mike could show this youngster a few tricks with over 50 years of flying experience under his belt. Mike is in his element. But they must press on, as the team is not far from the equator now. What a joy to have made it this far. And to prove that they really are at the equator, a local shows them that when you're on the south side of the world, the water moves clockwise, whereas just a 20-meter hop northways makes the water go anti-clockwise. Two weeks on the road, 7,000 kilometers later, the roll's proving to be a real trooper, and most importantly, everyone's sanity intact. Now that's something worth celebrating.